Unit 3, Video 20. We're going to wrap up the American system, take a step towards Panic of 1819, and then in Video 21, we'll dive deep into the details of the Panic of 1819. Wrapping up yesterday, remember, when you take your AP history test, say that the American system was awesome, and the federal government and Henry Clay developed the roads and canals that created this country. Is it the truth? Probably not. But it's okay to put that answer when you're doing A, B, C, or D on your multiple choice. If you remember back from previous videos, we had the embargo, which led to the increase in the textiles in Lowell, Massachusetts, and the manufacturing and industry sector growing in the mid-Atlantic and in New England. Well, for those businesses to continue to grow, you're going to need roads, you're going to need canals, and you're also going to need to connect those roads and canals to the Midwest and to the South. And remember, the official line is that through the American system and Henry Clay, the federal government, will finance and fund these through tariffs and through land sales. The reality is most of these successful roads and canals were built by limited liability corporations, which in a lot of cases, these limited liability corporations were banks or financial institutions. So banks were doing these projects. Where were the banks getting that money to finance it? We would understand like, hey, the government's building this. And we said that the government would build these through tariffs and by land sales. Well, how is the bank? Where are they getting the money? Is the bank's borrowing money from the bank? During this time period, because of issues throughout the world, this is crazy. Like in Mexico, there's revolutions because Napoleon put his king in charge of the South American governments. They revolt, and so the mining of rare earth metals like gold and silver plummets. And so around the world, there is a low specie circulation. Specie meaning metals or golds or silvers. Also, a lot of our species are going over to Asia to buy goods from Asia. So in America and in Europe, there's a limited amount of specie or metal gold. And the way that money works is it's supposed to be, especially in the 18th, 19th, and early 20th century, every dollar bill is supposed to be backed up by gold or silver, and to the point of the piece of paper that you hold the dollar bill is just a receipt. You give that receipt to the bank and you can exchange it for the gold or the silver. The paper was just an easy way to say, I've got gold. It was an easy way to do transactions. It was a placeholder. So in order to have dollar bills to pay for things, you had to have the gold to back it up. But we didn't have gold because of the issues in South America. So what happens is at first the government pulls back some of the regulation on the printing of money without specie. So they say, all right, we understand there's a metals, silver, or gold shortage. We don't have any. So the federal government allows the banks to print some of this paper. Allows them to print the paper. Well, then it just goes all wild out, and a lot of the banks just start printing their own money. So basically, the bank's printing money to fund their own projects. Basically, a ticking time bomb. This is a problem waiting to happen. We're going to get into some of this, or all of this, in the Panic of 1819. Just kind of setting the stage here. So the American system, now the third part of the American system, we didn't really talk about the tariffs, but tariffs on imported goods were designed to protect American industry, also to raise money to build the roads. We talked about the building of the roads and the canals. And the other part of the American system is we're going to create the second bank of the United States of America, and the job of this giant financial institution, which would be similar to the Federal Reserve today, is to manage the supply of money in the economy and manage and regulate the lower banks, make sure that they're not doing ridiculous practices that are going to bankrupt the country, that are going to cause an economic collapse. We need to manage and monitor the money supply, which they already knew was out of control. Remember, we talked about they don't have any specie. They're allowing banks to print money. We should have a Bank of the United States that's going to have a strong, tight control of the money supply and to make sure that our economy is sound. It will not ever do this. That was the third part of the American system. All right, stepping into theory as we push. So that's enough with the American system. Build the roads, create a bank, and do some tariffs to pay for the roads and to protect the economy. Those are three things. The American system doesn't really work all that well. It's okay, it's fine, but you need to make sure that you say it's awesome on the test. So stepping into theory to push us towards the Panic of 19, the economy is cyclical. It goes up, it goes down. This is completely natural. But it doesn't have to go all the way up, and it doesn't have to go all the way down. There's going to be ups and downs. That is a business cycle. There's going to be expansion. There's going to be recession. That doesn't mean that everyone loses their job. That doesn't mean that everyone gets rich. But we need to know that there's going to be good times, and there's going to be some not so good times. Let's talk about kind of how a natural economy should work with interest rates. This is not necessarily how our economy works today because we have a Federal Reserve, because they had a BUS or the Bank of the United States. But let's just talk about in theory how things sort of should work, how money between you, the consumer or borrower, and the bank should work in practice. So let's say the bank is saying 20% is going to be the interest rate, meaning that's how much money will grow over time. If interest is 20%, if you borrow $100,000, then you're going to have to pay $20,000 back. That's a lot of money that you have to pay back to borrow. If you save at 20%, then you can make $20,000. When interest is high, people are more likely to save their money and earn money through interest. When interest is low, people are more likely to borrow money because it doesn't cost you much money to borrow. And if people borrow more money, they spend more money. And when you're spending, businesses grow, and that causes the economy to expand. So in this example right here, this will happen when interest rates are low and people are borrowing money, businesses are expanding. This happens when interest rates are high and people are saving, businesses are not expanding. There's a lot more to this, and you're going to need to study economics on your own time. This beyond high school economics, you're going to have to go to college level, and even if you're just, you have to be an economist to really get into the deep details of what's happening. Or you just jump into YouTube, watch some videos by Bob Murphy, or go to some Mises Institute seminars and figure out the deep details. We're not going to go into that because you're probably saying, well, why not just have it go up all the time? It doesn't work that way. So let's just look at this example. He's going to save his money. Well, the bank can't just hold your money. The bank has to make money. Well, why does the bank have to make money? No one wants to borrow at this rate. It is too expensive. I'm not borrowing at 20%. I'm not going to pay 20% interest to borrow money. Well, the bank has to pay Steve back. And how is the bank going to pay back Steve his $100,000 plus his $20,000? Where are they going to come up with this? The only way that they can come up with this money is they have to lend money out and earn interest off of borrowers. The people that are saving, they've got to pay them back. So now they've got to find a way to find people that will borrow money. And it's really pretty easy. 20% interest is too high, he says. Well, if they lower interest rates, then they may not make as much, but they're going to be able to make some money. And if they have enough customers, then they'll be able to pay Steve off and they'll be able to make some sort of profit. So let's say they cut it in half, 10%. He says, all right, deal. Now, they're not going to make as much money. They're going to have to find other people. But we have now, through the market, decided what the interest rate should be. This isn't some third party that comes in and says interest rate should be 5%. It is decided between the banks and the people, and there is an ebb and flow, and it can go up and down. Are people willing to borrow at a higher rate? Are people unwilling to borrow at a higher rate? And let's just play around with it. Let's drop it way down to 1% just for an example. The bank's like, well, whatever. This money's not doing any good here. Whatever. Let's just get it out there. 1% is better than no percent. And at that point, you say to yourself, yeah, okay, there's no point in saving. If I put my money in the bank, it only earns 1% interest. So I might as well borrow money. It's almost free money at this point. So what we are doing is pretty much shoveling money into the economy. We're pouring a bunch of money in. People spend that money on businesses. Businesses will borrow that money. Businesses will borrow money and use that to expand their business and to grow their business. And the economy will expand when interest rates are really high. The problem, and this is good, this is great, but the problem is when interest rates are really low, anyone can borrow money. And so that money finds its way into the hands of irresponsible people, finds its way into irresponsible businesses, but it also just finds its place in the wrong sectors of the economy. When it's more expensive to borrow money, then you absolutely have to make sure you're doing the right thing. If you can borrow money at 1% interest, you're not going to say, look, I'm going to open a cheese-only pizza place. It's been my dream my whole life, cheese-only pizza. And 1% interest, I can finally do it. If it was 20% interest, like, I love my idea, but I can't afford it. Now, when interest rates are really low, I can take a risk. And people who normally wouldn't be able to make risks can take risks. And now we just, you gave me $1 million to open a cheese-only pizza place. Guess what? My cheese-only pizza place is going to go out of business. The money finds its way into the wrong places of the economy, but that's okay because there will be a natural correction. This is going to start to fall. It finds its way into the wrong sectors when A, either the government diverts it into the wrong places of the economy, or B, low interest rates like today divert the money into the hands it probably should not be in. And so now we're going to start to go in the other direction. It can't go up and up and up and up and up forever. You give out free money. to everybody. People aren't going to spend it correctly. It's going to go into businesses that fail. When those businesses start failing, problems start happening. Example, my pizza place. I borrowed $1 million to start my cheese-only business place, and I can't pay back my loan. That's a problem for the bank. And eventually, if there's enough of these cheese pizza only places that go out of business, the banks are going to fail as well. And when the banks go under, they lend out less money. And if they're lending out less money, that means people have less money to spend. That means there's less places to borrow to expand. And so the economy is going to contract. It's going to self-correct naturally. This is the way it works when it's the business and the people and the government staying out of it. So what the banks are going to realize is, whoa, here's how you fix the problem. Just raise interest rates so we can keep that money from the cheese pizza only guys. And we put the money in the hands of the people who are going to spend it wisely, who are going to help the economy. And so we will have a drop, less spending, and the economy goes down. It doesn't crash. It just naturally corrects. And after time, it will naturally move back up. This is the way it goes when you have financial institutions working with the markets and working it out between the two of them. Interest rates will go up and down and up and down and up and down. And that's how the economy will slowly and steadily grow over time. Eventually, they'll have to lower the interest rates back down, and then we'll again another expansion. Now, the government doesn't like this. The government says, no recessions ever. Bam, bam, spow, bam. We want to go up to the moon. And that's what we're living through right now. The government over the last 15 years is saying, no recessions, stop them. Well, we have to have a natural correction. It just has to happen. We have to go through these hard times. And the bank's like, look, we can't do this. We're going to raise interest rates. We're just going to naturally correct it here. No, not going to happen. The government says, no, we're going to grow. And the Bank of the USA then, and the Federal Reserve today, when we have these hard times, and instead of going through the hard times where interest rates go up and people have less money, the government just showers the economy with money, goes up and up and up and up. And we have seen exactly what happens when you do this. The Great Depression, we need to have a correction. Inflation, and boom. Now, actually, technically, it's inflation. Then they pull all the money out. Boom. And they try to pour the money back in. It doesn't work. So that one's kind of not necessarily true because they kind of go back and forth. But that's another problem. We shouldn't have a central government or central bank deciding flood the economy with money and then suck it all out and then flood it again. How about you just let the financial institutions and the people decide how much money is in the economy? Instead, you have the government flamethrower pouring, just flooding the place with liquidity, with cash, and then they decide just turn off the spigot, and then there's no money, and everything collapses, and they try to flood it again, and it's too late. Then we had the same thing with the housing boom. Instead of just letting the market correct itself, the government steps in, $1 trillion bailouts for the banks. Instead of letting the system correct, throw the money at the people, throw the money, throw, pew, pew, pew. And then the same thing's happening today. Our economy clashes during the coronavirus. Flood it with money. Flood it. Money here. You want a free check? $1,200 for you. $500 for you. Here's money for you. PPP loan for you. $5 million for you. $5 million. Oh, stop. You need to just let the market correct. And the businesses that fail were the cheese pizza only businesses. And the ones that succeed will continue to succeed. They're strong businesses. If you make it through hard times, then that is a good business that will be around forever. If you don't make it around through hard times, if you have a cheese-only pizza business, you're supposed to fail. This is the natural order of things. You should go under. The government shouldn't come in and say, oh, yeah, man, your tofu sandwich business failed. That can't happen. The people need their tofu sandwiches, but the people aren't buying tofu sandwiches. But the people need tofu sandwiches. We've got to save them. $5 million. We will bail you out. You're going to pay me $5 million to make tofu sandwiches that no one's going to buy? Deal. It doesn't make any sense, but that is what we do. Big collapse, crush is coming. Yeah, I mean, remember, there's ups and downs. It's supposed to happen. There's going to be good times. There's going to be bad times. The markets and the financial institutions will work it out. We don't need a third-party bank. We don't need a third-party government coming in and trying to save the day and fix everything. Because they don't fix everything. You can look at this chart and see. They didn't fix everything. Does this look like fixing? Does this look like fixing? Does this look like fixing? What do you think is getting ready to happen? Well, it already happened. Maybe you just let the banks and the people work it out. And I know that current times, this is a different situation. Sure, what caused the 2020 bubble to burst is a different cause that we might not have expected, but the bubble is still the bubble. This bubble right here was still created through poor practices by businesses doing things they should not be doing, by governments and banks doing things they should not do. The bubble is the bubble. It doesn't matter what caused the bubble to burst. There was going to be something eventually, whether it was a housing crisis, whether it was a tech boom, whatever it was that causes it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that there is a bubble and it needs to self-correct. So let it self-correct. Let the market do the market's thing. How things fall apart, real quick. The economy is cyclical. Let's say you own part of Google. It's $392 billion, and then it's nothing. And then all of a sudden you got nothing. You're probably like, how is that? Well, investing is a lot like betting on a business. How? How does this happen? Well, the better question is, well, how did it get to $392 billion? Because people said Google is worth $392 billion. And if people believe and invest in it thinking that it's worth that, then it could also be that it's worth nothing. Perfect example, Blockbuster Video. You may not remember. If you've ever been to a Redbox, it's where you can get a bunch of videos. Imagine a store filled with videos. You go around and you buy them. At Netflix, you pay $15 a month to watch whatever month's movies you want. Back in the Blockbuster Video days, you could pay $3 and rent a video. And you go back the next day and pay $3 and rent a video. You just had to physically go there. You had to leave your couch. Blockbuster Video was worth $3 billion. Because the market said it was worth $3 billion. Because demand said it was worth $3 billion. Because supply said it was worth $3 billion. And then it's worth nothing now. It's worth zero. If you own stock in Blockbuster Video, you got nothing. You got a goose egg. Why? Because that's what the market says it's worth. No one wants to go there. People don't value it. So that's how things can just disappear. That's how economies work. That's how economies are cyclical.